Okay, good morning, good morning. What- what- Okay, so in Parshas Naso, you read about the contribution that the princes of each tribe gave to the Mishkan, to the inauguration of the Mishkan. So among the gifts that the princes, the leaders of each tribe gave were wagons, and they gave also, besides the wagons, they also gave um, bulls to uh, carry the wagons, to pull the wagons. How much did they give? Torah says that each prince gave one bucker, one bull, and they joined together to give a wagon, so that two princes each together, two princes together contributed towards one wagon. So there's a total of 12 bulls and 6 wagons. Now, the obvious question is, why couldn't each prince give himself a whole wagon? Why did they divide the wagon so that each one gave a half a wagon? It sounds a little funny, especially considering the fact that when it came to the donations for the construction of the tabernacle, it says over there that that the princes of the tribes, the leaders of the tribes, didn't want to donate. They didn't want to donate first. They want to donate first because they said, let the community donate what they'll donate, and we, the princes, will come and we'll complement, we'll fill up whatever gap they're missing. What actually happened was that the people, Jewish people, unanimously gave everything and more the tabernacle needed. So there's nothing left for the princes to give. So, but you guys can hear me okay, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. So there's nothing left for the princes to give. So so they didn't want to make the same mistake when it came to the inauguration or the construction of the tabernacle. So they came last, and they were only able to donate the stones for the breastplate of the Kohen Gadol. So when it came to the inauguration of the tabernacle, they didn't want to make the same mistake. So they came first, and they donated the sacrifices and the what was needed to transport the tabernacle. So the whole point of their gift and giving their gift first was in order to show that they're excited to give. And yet when they gave in a very calculated, limited way. Each one gave a half a wagon. How does that make sense? The question is even greater, because the truth is that the amount of wagons that they donated were barely enough to hold the contents of the tabernacle. So there's 6 wagons. What did they do with the 6 wagons? The Bnei Kahas, who carried the Arin, the holier artifacts are probably not a good word to use, whatever. The holier items in the tabernacle, they carried on their shoulders. So the Bnei Gershon, they got 2 wagons to carry the curtains that covered the tabernacle. And the Bnei Merari, they got 4 wagons to carry all of the heavier items in the tabernacle. So they had the boards, they had all the various things that were really heavy were carried by the children of Merari. So 4 wagons wasn't really enough to carry all these heavy items. And I say it wasn't enough. The Gemara goes into great detail discussing how exactly they were able to manage to carry everything in those 4 wagons. The Gemara says they had to put one plank on top of the other. The Gemara says even more, that it was stacked up high, so that the children of Merari had to walk alongside those wagons to make sure that nothing dropped. We're talking about really fitting it in a way that like it was difficult. It was a really hard job to fit it in. So the question is, why was it so? If they're coming to give the tabernacle in a generous way, why is it they gave in such a minimalistic gift that it was barely enough? What does barely enough mean? Barely enough means that there was a strain to make it work, so that not only was it 4 wagons, which wasn't enough, the wagons themselves had a certain width and length, and if they were a little bit wider, a little bit longer, it would make things so much easier. You wouldn't have to have, the Levim are known to not always be the full of chesed. Levim are associated with Buddha. So imagine these angry Levim. Hey, Rabbi, good morning. Imagine these Levim being told you have to walk alongside the wagon and make sure that nothing falls. You have to worry about the reaction. I said, it could be it's a Monday morning. You have these Levim like walk alongside the Mishkan, make the wagon a little bigger, a little longer. You don't know what you're getting into. So what's the idea? Answer is like this: the purpose of the Mishkan was to that Hashem should rest, to get connected to the truth. The truth of Hashem, the holiness of Hashem should rest in this world. What's the truth? The truth is, truth is Hashem is alone, nothing besides him. That's the truth. The truth is all there is Hashem. So what's the world and what's the human being doing here? It says in the Torah, whatever God made in the world, he only made for his glory. What's a human being doing in this world? I wasn't created for any other reason but to serve my master. So the whole function of every detail of this world is the service of Hashem. The whole function of every part of human being is to serve Hashem. So the tabernacle was a place of the expression of the truth of Hashem. So if there will be a space in the wagon that wasn't used, if there will be an extra couple of feet in the wagon, or even more, if the cattle weren't strained to their fullest, they weren't using all of their strength, it's not only that a part of the tabernacle wouldn't have been used, it would have expressed the diametrical opposite point of what the tabernacle is all about. The whole point of the tabernacle is to express there's nothing besides Hashem. It's all for Hashem, that Hashem's truth should rest in the world. So if there's a space in the tabernacle which isn't used, so that's sending the opposite message of what the tabernacle is about. The tabernacle is about there's nothing besides Hashem. All there is Him, Hashem's truth. So if there's a space in the tabernacle and a space in the wagon which is not being used, so it's the opposite of the tabernacle. It's opposite of what the tabernacle is meant to be expressed. So it says in the Torah, we all heard this before. Maybe we need to hear it again and again and again until it becomes part of us. God says in the Torah, make from your tabernacle and dwell within them. It doesn't say to dwell within it, it's dwell within them, because every Jew is meant to be a tabernacle. So in a similar way, if we're supposed to be a tabernacle, we have to take a page out of the wagons of the Bnei Merari. What do we got to do? You might think, Rabbi says, you have your time to study Torah. You have your Chayenu, you have your Rambam, you have your Chitas, you have your Gemara, you have your Chassidus, and then you're done. You have some free time too, right? But if you're meant to be a tabernacle for Hashem, that means there's nothing in your life which isn't meant to be part of the service of Hashem. There's no free moments where you could say they are exempt from studying Torah, because why did God give you this moment? This moment's also meant to serve Hashem. It cannot be that Hashem gave me a moment that wasn't meant to have content, to have purpose. That's why God created the moment. It wasn't like first God created time and space and said, what should I do with it? God has a purpose for creation. And because God's purpose for creation, and because there's nothing besides Hashem, so everything that Hashem made is for His sake. So it cannot be that there's a second in time that doesn't have a purpose. Hashem doesn't want me to do something with it. I'm not meant to study Torah with it. There's in Torah itself, the study of Torah itself, it's possible to study Torah also externally. Like some of us who are trying to finish their karbanos while we exist. Okay, none of us, but whatever. Anyway, so it's possible you could study Torah, but not really be into your Torah stuff, right? You're studying Torah, but you're not really into it. We learned from the tabernacle that each of these bulls was using all of his strength to pull the wagons. What that means is you cannot just say I'm studying Torah and then say, okay, I'm doing what I'm also studying. I have to put all my koiches, all my energy into studying Torah. I'm studying. I'm doing it. But that's not true. Because if you're not putting in all of your mind into it, there's a part of your mind that's not studying Torah. And that's called bittul Torah. It's called, there's an empty space in your wagon. The example the Rabbi gives is from the laws of the Megillah. It says in the Torah, in the Talmud, that the Torah study is interrupted for the sake of hearing the Megillah. You stop studying Torah in order to hear the Megillah. Now, Megillah itself is also Torah. What does it mean? You stop studying Torah to hear the Megillah. That's not, you're not stopping to study Torah. You're hearing the Megillah. You're hearing the whole Megillah is Torah. No, because when you hear the Megillah, what are you exercising in your mind? You're only exercising an external part of your mind. There's a deeper layer of your mind you're not even using. So if I'm studying Torah, but I'm not putting my whole mind into it, so there's a part of my mind that's not being used. There's an empty space in my wagon. And so therefore we learn from the tabernacle, from the wagon, number one, there's no extra moment. Number two, that in the moments themselves Hashem gives me, I have to put my all in every moment. And it means something more. First of all, not necessarily is it only Torah study, of course. The famous story I heard from Rabbi Korf, Rabbi Korf said that he heard a story of the Alter Rebbe. There was a Chassid of the Alter Rebbe who previously was not a Chassid, and he became a Chassid. So his father-in-law asked the Alter Rebbe, is my son or son-in-law, is he learning as much Torah as he was before? The Alter Rebbe said, he's not. Why? The Chassidim not care so much about Torah study? So the Alter Rebbe said like this. He said before he was learning Torah for kavod, for glory. Now there are a lot of people in the family that need to have the honor of his Torah study. They're the shver, the shviger, the father-in-law, the mother-in-law, the brother-in-law, the sister-in-law. Everyone wants to be honored by his Torah study. There's a lot of Torah that has to be learned for everybody. But now he's learning Torah for the sake of Hashem. So it's only not for so many people are involved, it's just for one. It's only for one, it could be less Torah. That's the story. Rapinha said it sounds like it's a joke, but he said, I don't think it's a joke. Because if you're learning Torah for Hashem, it could be learning less Torah, because not always is Hashem wanting you to learn Torah. But the point, though, is that every moment of your life has to be the service of Hashem. And not only is it regarding your Torah study, but also regarding all other areas of your life. You might say, okay, so every free moment is supposed to be studying Torah. But then there's a time I'm eating and drinking, doing business, all this stuff in my life. Who says it has to be the sake of Hashem? Or the talents Hashem has given me that I have from the time when I was half Hashem, but they were developed when I was not so religious and I was going to college and all these things that I've learned. And who says that they have to be also used for the sake of the service of Hashem? But if you're a tabernacle for Hashem, there's no such thing as a part of your life, as a moment in your life, which is not meant to be used. It's if Hashem gave you another moment on this green earth, that means that this moment is part of your space of being a tabernacle. If it's not used, it's not just that you're not using it. It's the opposite of the whole thing what a tabernacle is about. That there's nothing besides Hashem. Moshe the Indian.
Can't you say it's dafka in the space where there was nothing, even Hashem is found there?
Dafka in the space where there's nothing, even Hashem is found there as well. We'll explain a little bit.
In the wagon, if there was an empty space somewhere, instead of it being full, and saying you're using every aspect to have a piece of wood or something there, or say leaving a little space to say dafka, it's there. Dafka where Hashem isn't revealed, he's there too, to give that impression in the wagon. It's like when it comes to the karbanos, even those seemingly unimportant things that lead up to the to giving of the carbon, those are all steps necessary to complete the whole the whole carbon.
There is a similar theme that Rebbe says about the plagues in the Egyptians. Rebbe says that there are different kinds of creatures. There are
Careful.
creatures that express Hashem's truth. You just look at them, you say, this is a person that expresses godliness. He's a Torah scholar, he's a tzaddik. There are people which are agnostic and people which are atheistic. So Rebbe says when there's someone who's, I may be misquoting, this is what I remember. If someone's atheistic, at least he's like in the conversation with Hashem. If someone's more like agnostic, like I'm not even interested. I don't know if agnostic's the right word. Someone who says I'm apathetic is probably the right word. There isn't, doesn't have to do with me. In a way, that person is more of a problem. The guy is atheistic. The guy's atheistic because he's in the conversation, he's annoyed by godliness enough that he has to deny it. However, someone who's apathetic to the whole thing, to him, it seems like this godliness doesn't reach him. There's a word the Alter Rebbe uses in Parshas Shemini, the Torah. The Alter Rebbe says the word is unreaded. Unreaded means to touch you. There are things which may reach you, but they may not touch you. Lagas in Hebrew means both to reach and to touch. And what's unique about the power of touch is that power of touch not only are you being touched, whenever you're being touched, you're also touching, unlike other faculties of a human being. So the purpose of there are different kinds of plagues. One of the plagues was the plague of frogs. Frogs are like the apathetic people. Why? There are some creatures in this world which their existence sort of points at as a riddle. Like, why would God create them? And they seem to be the opposite of God's creation. They're predators. They're mean. They're cruel animals. So those animals, at least, are like the atheists. They express God's truth in the way of going the opposite of godliness. But the frogs are like, what are they there for? What are they doing here? So Hashem specifically made a miracle with the frogs to highlight to the Egyptians that everything in the world is created by Hashem, even those things, and even those moments, and even those people which are apathetic, are also expressing God's truth. That was necessary in Egypt. But here, this is not Egypt. Here we're in the tabernacle. Here, this is the Mishkan. Mishkan is a place of expression of God's truth. It's not a place of countering and fighting with the opposite argument. Here is a place of expression of the truth of Hashem. And how do you express the truth of Hashem? What does this have to do with godliness? How does this express godliness? So in the tabernacle, there's no such thing as an empty space. So just to recap the points. Number one is no such thing as an empty moment. Number two is you can't have a moment that you're halfway into and halfway out. Number three, even those things which seem to be mundane, just like the space in tabernacle was used completely, so too there's no such thing as a talent, something you have in your life that wasn't given to you for the sake of expressing Hashem's truth. That's what I want to share today. Any other questions or comments?
Where are you?
We're in Las Vegas today.
Ah,
The city.
Right.
Chaim Baruch.
say hi to Chaim Eiser for me.
Oh, I shall.
Thank you.